first of all, let's go and we'll open a new browser window, and you got to figure out where you want to try and get this data from. This can be tricky. For instance, I can look up California fire data or fire map. What you're looking for is something that where you can get that data from. So there's different fire activity. The other thing is I want to try and get it for the whole country, not just California. So if I look up like National Wildfire Map, you try to figure out where you can go, and you look through different places. So I think I ended up here. So this is a National Interagency Fire Center, and it collects information from all the different fire agencies in the country. And if you look under maps, there was this one, it's hard to tell, it's a bit of an obscure link, but you go here, and this has wildland fire open data. And open typically means anybody can use it. And then down here, there's it's in different categories. So you can get perimeters or wildfire points. I just went with points. That's a lot easier to use. A more accurate way could be the wildfire perimeters, so that if the fire is expanded past a single point, you can get a more accurate distance to the fire. But let's just go with wildfire points, and there's a bunch of different subcategories here as well. I just went with incidents, and you can kind of try and read the description and understand what that's talking about. If I go to incidents, down here you've got some different attributes. So these are the different values that are stored in this data. And you can tell if it's a text or time or number. You can also get some details about it. And then here on the right, you can either download it there or there's an API. So I went ahead with this one, the JSON. So I'll copy that. And then I'll go back over here. Paste it in here. Now this is I'll just say data is here. Right now I need a way to get to this data and download it. Now what we can do, we can just go look what it looks like. So let's open a web browser and let's just paste that in. And then here we go, and let me try and open this. Just a second. Okay. So this is what it looks like, and this is how JSON files are. There's open brackets, curly brackets, and there's like the name for a value, and then the value itself separated by commas. So the type is feature collection, the name is incident. Looks like this is some other value, and it has sub-values, so the type and the properties, and then within properties there's other sub-values. And then you have features, and then down here you start seeing some of the repetitive stuff, and that's the actual information. So what we're going to do, back off, we need to get a couple things in order to be able to get this information. And this is why I found it easier to work in this IDE. So let me search for node.js. Node.js. And this is the version I downloaded. I think it was matching what's on the Alexa. So download this and then install it. Okay. And I think I already have this installed, but basically all you're going to do is click next through the install. Accept the terms. Just all the defaults. Okay, it's finished. Close that. The next thing I did is installed some npm scripts, and that'll help you install packages into your project. But let me, just to make sure everything went fine with the Node.js install, let's close it, and we will reopen it. And then what we're going to want to do is down here in the extensions, search for npm, and we can use this first one, npm support for Visual Studio Code, and go ahead and install it. There's other options as well, like npm commands. You can go ahead and install that one as well. You can see there's a bunch of other extensions people have done. You can feel free to play around, look at some of those, you can search online to see which ones are good and what the benefits of some of them are. Now we can go back to here. Now, in order to do this, we'll right-click on our FireMonitor 2, our project, and then open an integrated terminal. And from here, we'll type npm install, and the one specifically we're going to want to get is request. So you just hit enter. And we're going to need that in order to do web requests, web queries. Okay, now that we've got it, go back to our code, and we can close this terminal here. And make sure there was no errors, anything like that. So again, I'm going to paste in code that I've already got. So this function right here is called getHTTP, and you pass in a URL, and it just goes and grabs that content. Now it's using this tricky syntax here. So a promise is, it's sort of like, and this is my understanding of it, that, where do we have it? The await, right? So it's going to do something and then guarantee that we get some kind of result back eventually. So you could probably just do, here's that call, HTTP request. Actually, we need to add something in. Make sure that we use that. So let's go up here at the top, and we'll add const HTTP request equals require request. So when we say HTTP request, it's going to use that library. So now we're going to do an HTTP request get, and we're passing in the URL, and then we're going to, there's a error, response, and body. Okay. Now, if we have an error, let's output that. Let's get the information, and then let's check if we have a response, and let's also make sure the response status code is 200. So if it isn't 200, let's also output that status code so we can see what's going on in our log. Otherwise, we'll resolve, and this is the return that works, and we'll return back this structure that, and you'll notice this looks just like the JSON code as well, right? A status code, and then the body. So the body's the meat and the data that we're returning back. And then down here, if we had an error, log that error, and then we'll run the reject side, return back status code of -1, and we'll return back our error message. Okay, so now what we can do is actually call this up here. So let me paste this in. So let's store our fire data URL, and it should be the same. And then let's output some text. Let's say, okay, we're going to try to get the fire data. Let's call our get HTTP, and we'll use the await keyword here. And then let's get back whatever we get back and store it as response. Now, we want to check the status code. So if the status code isn't 200, then we probably have some kind of an issue. And let's output some more information. So you should see, if there is an issue, you should see a bunch of errors. You should see the errors down in here. You should see the errors up here. We'll see the status code. We'll see the actual response body, which could be something else. Like if we got through here and the response status code wasn't 200, but we didn't actually have an error according to HTTP request. Or it could just be we did hit an error and our status code will be -1, and then the body will be the error message. And then let's just return there was an error trying to get the fire data. What I've noticed is the fire data server may be down, and then I added this let the skill publisher know so they can investigate. Otherwise, if the status code isn't 200, let's say we got the data, and let's dump it out to the log so we can see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and save all of this. We got a bunch of modified files. You can see in here, there's a whole bunch of things. This is all of that extra packaging that was included. So let's say, ideally you might want to split this up into 2 commits. So you might want to do the adding the package first, and then second would be, actually, you might even want to split it up into 3. A second one adding this function, and then a third one where you're calling this function and this part of it here. But again, that's all sort of personal preference and how you want to document the code and the changes that you've made to the code. I'm just going to say getting fire data and adding request package. And then up here under changes, I can just hit the plus and that'll stage all 604 of the changes. And then we'll go ahead and commit that. So we should be good. And now let's go to our skill and deploy the skill. Okay, our skill is successful. So now we should be able to go ahead and test it and hope that everything is out. Alexa, open fire test.
Welcome to fire test. I have no idea where the nearest fire is.
Okay, so now let's go look at the logs. So if under code, Amazon CloudWatch, and let's look at this last one. Okay, load more. Okay, so look up fire intent handler, enter. We have the consent token. We got our location, trying to get fire data, got the fire data, and then you can see here's all of that text that's coming back, that JSON file. So our next step is trying to interpret that correctly, and then calculating where the closest fire actually is.